Could that just put him over the edge?
I'm not too sure. I don't think they did well.
He's a bully.
I'm just so sick and tired. I'm hanging on a wire, a foot over the fire, and it's burning. I can feel it inside. Done with the same cliche, done with the day after day. There's got to be a way. Now is the time to break the tie. I'll live, I'll die for what is wrong and what is right. I'll take the pain for all the ones without a name. To be invincible, we'll be invincible.
They still have a lot of holes to fill.
We'll be
He didn't get fired. He didn't get fired. No, he didn't get fired. He never got his contract renewed.
Welcome, everyone, to Two Guys in Hockey Talk. I am Pawel the Cat with my beautiful co-host.
Hey, Evan Rev Renner's coming at you, man, with another jam-packed show. Guys, check us out every Wednesday, 7 p.m. Mountain. I'm getting all mixed up because our guest is not on Mountain Standard Time, but we are tonight. We are on Mountain Standard Time. Catch us every week at 7 p.m. And just our show tonight is brought to you by JR Web Designs. Go check out Two Guys and HockeyTalk.com, and you can check out our stuff, check out our blogs and stuff. Pawel has been faithfully up there writing while I've been taking a holiday for the last month or two. But yeah, man, how you doing tonight, bud?
I'm doing well. I'm excited for our guest, and I've got a beverage. Do you have a beverage?
Got a beverage. Let's do it.
Here, Season 5, Episode 28. Let's go. Cheers, everyone.
Cheers.
Welcome, Michael DeVillano. How are you doing? You can cheers with us if you need to.
Boys, have you tried the Hoplark yet?
Not yet. Oh.
Yes, I have. Yes, it's pretty good.
It's
Yes,
the sparkling hops water.
Yeah.
So I got a question, Michael.
I was told this was spitting chiclets.
So, hey, got a quick question, Michael. Are you advertising for the hop?
Am I advertising for the hop? No, I don't think I get sponsored. You know what? Actually, I have a friend. He owns like a keto meat snack business. He goes, I know those guys. I'm like, good. I'm gonna text him and tell him, send me a goddamn case or two. Like, let's go.
Can I just say that we're the poor man's version of spitting chiclets because neither of us are missing any chiclets. So thank you for agreeing to come on this show. We appreciate it. We're going to get right into it. There's a lot to cover with the WHL Draft, hockey news, all things. The first question we ask every new guest that comes on the show, where did your love of the game first emerge? Was there a moment in your life that you fell in love with the game of hockey?
I've come to it probably in a weird way. You know, most people grow up wanting to play in the NHL, but my cousin was the assistant GM, chief scout of the New York Islanders, which I didn't really know, thank goodness. But what I did know is when he became the GM of the Detroit Red Wings. And so most people want to play in the NHL. I just wanted to be a GM in the NHL. I remember as a kid, and I think it was my 5th grade teacher, and he was a hockey freak, and he was probably my favorite teacher at the time, Mr. Van Tyne. And he was like, yeah, is that your cousin? I'm like, I think it is. And so, we were asking around, and sure enough, that's my cousin. And then I wrote him, and I remember just getting this big brown packet. And I loved hockey before that, but that was definitely solidified. Hey, this is realistic, because he was like a different cat, he had coached some junior B team, and then he wrote Emile Francis a letter, and Emile Francis hired him as a scout, and then became the head scout in St. Louis, right? So he went from St. Louis to the Islanders and was the chief scout and then assistant GM and then the GM. So it was kind of like a crazy path to learn this story. I just remember getting a packet from him. It was like a big fold-out poster of all the Detroit Red Wings at the time. and his first ever draft pick was Stevie Yzerman.
Whoa.
So, like, as a kid, you're like, yeah, there's not many Devil Animals. It was kind of cool, you know, like, and I always loved the stats part. I loved goaltending, which was weird. My parents didn't really want me to play hockey, which is strange, but so I never really got that opportunity. I think I think that was part of it. It was always some excuse. But, you know, I played, all my friends played, and I was always trying to play with them. It was crazy. And they're like, you should play with us. I'm like, I know. Yeah, it was really.
I mean, it's more expensive nowadays, but agreed, that definitely is a thing. But maybe talk a little bit, and I'll get Evan to ask the next question, a little bit about what that scouting process is like. And because I know a lot of people that tune in would love to be a scout, let alone, I mean, a GM. And now, you know, you have an extra opportunity given that there's 2 more teams now in the league with 32 of 30. Yeah, but even any other league, you know, like becoming a scout, working your way through the top, right?
So where I started was I took on a Bad News Bears Pee-wee team in house when I was probably about 25 or 24 in Toronto. Cool. And it was literally, and I coached of all weird things. I played basketball growing up in high school, and I coached some basketball, but I was always like, no, I love hockey, right? Like, this is crazy. Like, and so as soon as I, you know, got older, I started really playing on my own because I didn't have anything holding me back, but it was way too late. It was just for fun, right? But I always wanted to coach, and I was a real, you know, student of the game. So I took on that team, and it was terrible. It was the worst team you could ever imagine. Couldn't win, couldn't stop a puck, couldn't do anything. But, you know, I think it was the first time where I was always kind of demanding. I was like, no, you're gonna play aggressive. You're gonna play this way. You're not gonna. All right. So what if you're not the perfect player? And what was weird was that team couldn't win a game, and all of a sudden everybody made the playoffs in that house league, right? And next thing I know, we couldn't lose all of a sudden. We kept winning games. We had a hot goalie. And so these kids went right to the final. And the Mississauga Hockey League cheated them out of a final, by the way. They won the final game, and then they pulled some crap. They're like, we can't let this team win. And we had to play an extra game. Like, kidding, right? But what was interesting was people saw this. And I got approached, and I went from literally this Pee-wee green team. If you know colors in Mississauga, the green was like, you know, pretty low.
Yeah.
I went to coach the best midget A team in Cooksville.
Whoa.
And I got recruited by legends, which are, you know, Greg Selke, shout out to him. He's probably still mad at me.
Wow.
It was like, this team was really interesting. It was this A team of midget guys, and the dads didn't want to really be the coaches anymore, but they were really savvy, more savvy than I was. And, you know, I had a lot of ideas and a lot of things that I was going to every Hockey Canada thing. So really that's what got me started. And then I jumped right to midget A. Okay. And that team was like a perennial winner. And I was on the bench with Greg Selke, the son of Frank Selke.
Mm.
One kid, Michael Gifford, his grandfather, I think or the great grandfather was Foster Hewitt.
Right. Wow.
And then I forget the other one. There was another one, but it was like crazy. And then you had me, Devilano, in there. It was like wacky, right? But I learned a lot from them. I was probably really stubborn. And then I got an opportunity that immediately after that, I never felt that was my team. I was really like impatient and cranky. And I got this guy comes up to the ring and goes, I'm the GM of this organization called the Toronto Royals. This is like the same, you know, end of the same year, right?
Yeah.
And he goes, we're terrible. I saw what you did with that team and then the other team. And he goes, but, you know, we got to talk to one other guy, the guy that's on that, you know, running this team. We're 22nd out of 2014, right? And he goes, but I want you to come and I want you to turn this around. I'm like, okay. He goes, but I got to talk to the other guy who's running the team right now because he has this other guy in mind. I'm like, okay.
Right.
Turned out it was me. They both, he calls him, he goes, you're not going to believe this. We're both talking about bringing you on. So it was just like a weird, it was crazy, right? So, and I went all aggressive on that. And that was how I started on that. We ended up going from 21st to 4th.
Wow.
In an underage team.
Wow. Big jump.
And we built a great team. We attracted a whole bunch of I took all the Italian families. Nobody wanted like crazy Italian kids. I was like, I took 4, I took 3, I took them all. Like, let's go, right? And so it was a great group, minor midget. And then the next year I probably bit off. I went AAA, so I went A, double, AAA,
Wow.
all in 3 years. There's a lot of, the AAA thing was crazy because it was the 1992 birth year. But if you look at 92s, it was the Toronto Junior Canadians were a juggernaut. You had Tyler Seguin and Jeff Skinner on the Nats.
Wow.
You had the Toronto Marlies with like Freddie Hamilton and what was the goalie? Anderson. So it was crazy, like all these names. And then like junior Canadians had Devontae Smith-Pelly, Tyler Toffoli, Johnny McFarland that went first. You're like, okay, well, this is what you're going to coach against. Like, you enjoyed this, right? So that was interesting. That was minor Bantam. I learned by fire there. And then that chaos led me to being actually an assistant coach with the Toronto Junior Canadians at Midget. And so we took the 90s and the 89s. This guy, Joe Quinn, came from Ottawa. And Joe's like, hey, I'm looking for assistant coaches. I got this team. I was told you really know the players. I was like, yeah, these are the guys we should get. These are guys that double. My guys could come up, but I don't think they will because they want to stay together. They think they're going to win, which I think is a mistake, but we can try, right?
Yeah.
So that team, we took over the team that lost everybody except 6 guys. The guys we lost were like Alex Pietrangelo, Stefan Della Rova. We lost, like everybody went to the OHL.
Wow.
Right?
Jeez.
So we were like, well, we got 6 guys. I picked up. I said, we got to get this other goalie, and we already had Justin Sauvé. We ended up getting that whole team, and it was like we were winning every game 2-1. It was crazy. We had all the D and all the goalies, no forwards. And then the minor midget team had Ryan O'Reilly and Jordan Escott and Kyle Esser. So we kept calling them up, and it made a whole line, right? So we mixed them in with the older guys, and we ended up winning the damn championship. So that's like, so you talk about scouting, like there's a lot of stuff that led up to this. And then, I ended up being an assistant GM and a GM in the Provincial Junior League. I was out of it for 4 years.
Wow.
I did a little bit of stuff with ISS, but then I went west, and I was out of it for 4 years because I was in LA and my daughter was in LA.
Well, dreams are made there, right? Dreams are made in the West, they say. Everyone go west, young man, go west, right? So
you say that. My cousin was very mad, though. I remember my now wife was like, "Who's this guy blowing up your Facebook with all capital letters?" You could just see him typing. He was like so mad at me, which I understand why. He said like, "What are you doing in La La Land? Get back to Toronto. Get back in this."
Wow.
Get to the OHL, advance. That was how and he would hammer me, and he was right.
Yeah.
What was interesting was we ended up moving to Seattle. My wife moved to Seattle, and I was like, well, I guess I'll follow her. She wasn't my wife quite yet, but we were together for a while. And I wasn't a big fan of Seattle, but what was interesting about that, I was like, listen, I'm going crazy here, but there's 2 major junior teams. I got to get involved in one of these. So basically, I bullied my way on to Everett. And what I didn't realize was, I thought, wow, this is the Everett Silvertips, and they've got this minor program and this beautiful arena. And I'm like, no, I don't see any of your coaches that have the background I do. And they were really standoffish. And they actually gave the team, I wanted one team. They gave it to this other guy, and he said, oh, can you be my assistant? I'm sure. But he never showed up. I was like, what's going on? This is so weird, And then he called me, goes, I told them I think you should be the coach. I'm like, yeah, I should be. So that was another weird bad news Bears situation.
Oh,
so you're always evaluating and recruiting players. That's how it's like, you're helping them develop. But to me, it was like, this is a team, and I'm trying to train them to be a team. And I was really into putting in systems and teaching them how to play together in group and team tactics while doing individual. But in the end, it was like recruiting the right families and players was really a big part of it. And you had to evaluate because you weren't going to get the best guys. You had to project like all the way along. The only way you get these big leaps is you say, well, this guy's overlooked. And I believe in him, but, and you have to have frank conversations. What was interesting about that group was we were 6-29, and I thought I was going to get fired. And then I realized one day nobody gave a crap. So I was like, wait, nobody cares. And I remember, and we had great parents, and the kids were all so nice. They were too nice, right? They're all 13, some 14. And I saw a lot of talent. I'm like, this doesn't make any sense. Like, you guys should be winning games.
Yeah,
And so we were at this tournament. And I remember I had a great assistant coach, Mike Andrews. Shout out to him. He kept coaching in the organization at some of our midget teams and won another championship. But I go, all right, I'm sick of this. I'm going to lay down the law, which I've never done with any team, but I'm going to do it with this one and see what happens. And so I went and I threw a bit of a fake fit, but it scared them. And I told them, because I always pride myself. I communicate with them. I make them accountable. I don't care how old they are. Like, if they're 12, 10, 15, 17, whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
Always been what I've been good at. Mm-hmm. And I threw a stick and I yelled at them and I said, "You're never going to play again." I go, "I don't give a crap if I play 4 of you. You're going to play the way I tell you to play, or you're never going to see the ice again. There's no reason we should be losing to this team. We lost these other games. This is unacceptable." And that's the end of it. And it was really remarkable because we went from being 6-29 to 29-36.
Wow.
And it flipped the whole season. And we went to the playoffs. And, we had really good systems. The guys bought in. They were understanding the maturity in the dressing room that you need to have at 13, most of them.
Wow. Yeah.
And we ended up winning an overtime game to win the state championship.
Jeez.
At that level. It was a banter. They don't have minor and major there, So that was all great. They said, "Hey, can you be director of coaching next year?" We had brought in new players. That team was really good. They moved up, a couple levels to AA. Mm-hmm. And then I took on director of coaching. I was like, I'm going to build coaches. I'm going to build teams. I got us into Panaha in British Columbia. And all that was going great, but the arenas started playing games with my ice time. So, if you come to me and I say, "Hey, it's $2,800 for the year. We get this many ice times, and this is how long they are." Mm-hmm. I'm getting shortchanged, which means you're getting shortchanged. You're calling me a liar. And I was across like 30 teams. So I was like, listen, you either give me the whole arena, which I don't really want, but I'm not going to put up with this. So I'm done. What was sad was inside of 3 years, we had won like 5 state championships at different levels.
Wow.
There's 4 teams in Panaha. We had a tier 1 program in the Napple. So we had 2 teams that expanded to 4 teams in the Napple. And they blew it all up. When I say they, it was the arena, right? It was just really unfortunate. Yeah. So the community side of it, and they just had this. They just like, "Oh, I just want to, I want a house league program." I'm like, all right, well, that's what you're going to get because I'm out. And I remember talking to our GM, we were on the the community board together, and there's a lot of static up there. Like, I go, "I hope you'll support me in the next thing I do because I'm done." And he goes, "Why don't you run our U.S. scouting? Like, why don't you scout for us in the U.S.?" Like, I was moving out of Seattle to California, I think at the time, or I think it was New York. I think we were going to New York for 2 years. We were in New York. And he says, "Could you do that?" And I'm like, absolutely. Like, take away all the politics. I don't have to have a trial every 2 weeks for bad parents and players. I'm down, right? You can't pull the rug out for me that hard. Because it was tough. Like, we built something really special there, and we were, not everything was always perfect, but man, it was a lot better than from 0 to 1,000. So that's how, honestly, that's how I got into scouting because, I'd been building teams and coaching, and I'm a real nerd for the development aspects. We brought in Power Edge Pro. I don't know if you know what that is, like the McDavid Power Edge Pro stuff, because Joe created that. So the guy I coached with the Toronto Junior Canadiens with Ryan O'Reilly was there, and Joe used to bring in lumber. He go, "Oh, we're gonna break out the lumber. These guys have never seen anything like it." And Joe was awesome. I learned so much coaching with Joe. Like, wow, it was just a phenomenal season. I got to coach in the OHL Cup. I went down with the minor midgets, and I coached in the OHL Cup with Ryan and those guys because I became friends with his dad. And he's like, "Hey, man, we're a mess down here. Can you come over here?" So in the middle of the year, I went down and coached with him. I said, "Don't." Our GM was Rob Toffoli at the time. And we had a young coach that I think the guys liked him. He was more into skills than systems, and he was a very likable guy.
Yeah.
It was I mean, you're talking, guys were getting drafted to the OHL. And I just said, don't replace him, leave him, but tell him he's got to take direction. We got to put some systems in before the camp.
Yeah.
And put in breakouts and forecheck, which sounds strange now, but at the time they had nothing. So it was like we're putting in breakouts and we're putting in regroups, we're putting in forechecks, we're putting in power play, penalty kill, and we're going to practice the crap out of this so that we go into the OHL Cup prepared. And we had a great OHL Cup. Ryan, unfortunately, was hurt, but he ended up going first overall that year. So to Erie. And then the second pick was Taylor Hall, Matt Duchesne, Casey Cizikas. And Casey actually was the superstar of that OHL Cup, by the way. Like, he'd go back.
Really? Wow.
I think he had and actually there was another guy on that team because he was on the Mississauga Ice Dogs, which is back to being the Reps. At the time, it was the Mississauga Ice Dogs. So it was like a brief period.
Right.
But they were a dominant team at the 91 age group. They were just crazy. So yeah, it was like all of that led to me being in friggin' Everett.
That's crazy. That's crazy. So let me ask you a question. So Michael, now we'll get to some of the prospects in the system and everything.
Oh sure.
Yeah. I mean, I'm a prospects geek when it comes. I always feel bad, like of course in my neck of the woods in Alberta, I follow the Brook Invitational. There are so many kids.
Oh yeah, amazing. So it was a wonderful tournament.
Oh man, amazing! Some of the kids that come through. I always joke with people. I remember being at when Jack Hughes and Cole Caulfield were in the same tournament.
Right.
And I literally, I had my little iPhones were just coming out, and I had my little notes, and literally I put the year and everything, and people are saying, "What are you doing following little 9 to 11-year-olds?" It's just like, okay, I'm sorry, but
holy crap,
go for it.
You want so when Joe and I were done with the Canadians, we won I remember getting off the bench. We had won the GTHL championship. Ryan had missed because he went back down with the minor midgets, and Kyle went down, and they weren't even there the game we won it. I think that he was really pissed off at the time. And by the way, he'll remember none of this because I talked to him. In Nashville, he's like, and I remember it was him. Tyson Berry was busting his nuts. He's like, I don't remember any of this. I'm like, you don't remember the time I lost you at the TELUS Cup when I was looking for you when we found you under a table? He goes, I don't remember any of it. It was a busy year. So what was crazy was win the championship. We had a good TELUS Cup, but we blew one game. So we didn't end up winning that, but not, amazing otherwise. And then it was over. And then Joe and I both went separate ways a little bit. And he goes, I'm going to this thing called Peak Academy. And I'm like, what's an academy? He goes, oh, it's a hockey school, and they practice every morning, and they go to school. I'm like, why do you need that? Like, we're in Toronto, right? Like the GTHL, you have 12 AAA teams, that single age group in 1 mile radius of each other, right? It's like crazy. I go, well, that's interesting. He goes, yeah, and I got this kid. And he's really great. Oh, that's awesome. I go, maybe I can sign him because I'm going to provincial. And he goes, and he went to provincial too, into Streetsville, and then the academy thing. Streetsville doesn't exist, I don't think, anymore. I go, what's the guy's name? He goes, Connor McDavid. And I'm like, wow. I go, how old is he? He goes, 10. Wow. I'm like, okay, Joe, well, I'll be a provincial junior. But he was right.
He was right.
And he took that lumber, and one of the parents actually on our championship team funded him, and he turned it into what it is today, which is like the videos, the system. But he always had this crazy analytical mind around edges and placing the puck and retrieval.
Wow.
And it was just crazy, and it blew my mind. It took me a long time to absorb it, but it was just like, that was what he went and did. And the first guy he trains is Connor McDavid. And then, everybody's been through that. Connor Bedard, Jack Hughes, all the pro guys. So that's it's like, what's going on? But that was kind of my 10-year-old story.
No, I mean, everyone has to start at some point, and maybe you can allude to maybe the mindset and just the notion that a lot of people hear in the hockey world, and sometimes is thinking the game. You can play, you can skate, you have that physical capability, but maybe learning how to think the game and knowing kind of, as they used to say, like Gretzky knew where the pass was going to go all the way to the end, right? Like they knew where it was going. So could you talk a little bit about maybe your technique of how you teach the kids to think the game when they're on the ice? Because you talked about structure, you talked about systems, and we just want to say, because we've got Key and Ray coming in. Ray's a big Devils guy. And we got Key. We'll get into the NHL a little bit later because he's talking about the Flyers making the playoffs. Maybe we can get your thoughts, but kind of structure and things like that.
So, I was a total nerd for Hockey Canada. I went through and did almost all the levels you could do at the time, which I did Hockey Advanced, the High Performance one, and just before the program changed. And, I just absorbed that stuff. And I think the structure that I always kind of learned from, even just how you structure your practices, first of all, is around, individual, group, and team tactics. So I think that's the first thing is when you're teaching the game, the U.S. has done a really good job with skills, and there's an upside and a downside. The upside is they are producing very skilled players by giving everybody a puck, small area games, pressure, right? And I think the way you build to that is, yes, you've got to continuously over time have skills accumulation, and that's through repetitions of edges, puck touches, passing. But then there's like understanding the space on the ice, and those are to me group tactics. So it's understanding it's not a static game, but it starts from static. So depending on the age, like I think you always build from stop, motion, to more people in motion, to transition, to pressure and non-pressure. And that's the way I always think of things, right? So, it's like 1-on-0s become 1-on-1s, become 2-on-1s, become 3-on-2s, become 5-on-3s, become 5-on-5s, right? And sometimes 6-on-5s. And over time, you're just making things so that they understand if there's a puck on the ice and we have possession or don't, this is what we're all doing in a sense. This is the responsibilities of using space and how you fill it. And so I think in that term, and I think of how you break it down really simply through drilling. Right. And then team tactics, it's like you break down zones and then you piece them together over time, right? And people say, man, you spend a lot of time on breakouts. And I'm like, but it all starts from the structure of the breakout. And it's not, there's individual skills in the breakout. There's group tactics in the breakout, and then the system is the patterns, right? And you build from the first, the individual to the group to the team tactic over time, and you drill, and you add complexity, and then you add pressure. And that's the way I always think of it. And that's not just within one practice, that's over time. So that, they're progressing as a group, they're progressing individually. And that's the way I think of it. Because people are like, oh, you got to think the game. You can't think when you're in a game that fast. You have to have repetitions built into your brain, and the guys have to have common experience around that. I think. And so, I always think of I'm nerding out and I'm breaking down, looking at game tape, and I'm thinking, how do I do this so I don't have to explain to them they're doing it, and then it happens when I call it. And that's kind of the way I approach it. I think that's kind of the best way to describe it. And I learn from coaches all the time. And I think the NHL's like this. If you're around guys like, Dennis got a PowerPoint this thick, and they're breaking down the other team, they're breaking down their own stuff, and they're explaining to the players. Because at that point, we all have a common language with the players, and they should be able to adjust. And that's your goal, is that you have enough options over time that when you got good habits, individual, group, and team, there's always going to be different skill levels, but you should be able to plug people in, and they should be able to take on responsibility. And that was always my goal. And I always want pucks moving forward. I always want to start from the inside out, because if you start a breakout from the outside, and I see this all the time, we're rimming pucks to kids and it's going on their feet, and their feet are pointing to the middle or backwards. And I'm always like, okay, simple things is like, I want the pucks moving forward. So that means everything's got to build from that, right? Like teaching D escapes from a very young age, teaching them the breakout between the post and the dot, like keeping staggered support. If you start with that as your structure, over 3, 5, 10 years, you're building on that same structure. And when things don't work, you can reassess together. And when you coach guys, like I can walk into a room, and if I show them even on a board, I go, this is what you're doing, why it's not working. And I'm really, it's the same thing as I would teach a 10-year-old, just from a group
It really essentially is neuroscience, right? So you're just training those pathways by repetitions over and over. I mean, like they say, it takes thousands of repetitions over and over,
Absolutely.
like eye for puck. And okay, so let's just go a little bit into the scouting piece because it's
that was too much, but
no. This is
great.
I didn't know about the coaching element either that you had. So that's wonderful. We've been getting into a lot of that stuff lately. Let's just go back to the scouting now. When you're looking at players and you're trying to find players, there's two levels. There's looking at them, say for the WHA, say for the Silver Tips. So when you're looking for Everett, and also when the NHL is looking, now they're looking within a different age group. But essentially, what I'd like to know is there's all this talk around analytics. What we're hearing from most people who deal with scouts is the analytics has such a small part of it when you're looking for scouting. And I know things have changed quite a bit, like even with culture and what you're looking. So tell us and let the people know, what are you looking for when you're looking for some good talent out there for teams?
Well, I look at it almost from a modified coaching perspective. And, if you look at how we evaluate players, it's probably similar across most teams, just, different emphasis, right?
Right.
It's always about skills, sense, compete level, and skating. And that's really what it boils down to. And then there's levels within each of those that you're assessing to figure out, is this a player? And then but character and compete is one thing, but character is maybe an element of that or an offshoot. And you got to really think about what culture your organization is. So, but I think it starts with, you can't be in this game and not skate generally. The level of skating now compared to 10, 15 years ago is crazy. It's really blows your mind, the difference.
Right.
The need to have puck skills, passing skills, it just keeps growing. And then it's, sense is kind of those team and group concepts and, being able to play the game. And I know USA Hockey always kind of discourages defensive skills because they think it's at the detriment of offense. And there's some truth to that because you need reps around, offense. But I've always taught guys that, I still think body positioning, pressure, puck pressure, sticks positioning, and then body contact, body checking is still the progression. I don't know how you coach this game or evaluate players without that stuff. So I think it's the same thing. It's like when you're looking at compete level, it's like everything's a battle. Are they engaged in the game? Do they have a little bit of jam? And do they it's not that you're looking for a defensive player, you're looking for a competitive player and understanding where those things are. You have some guys that get upset and get mad, but then you have other guys that get mad by doing it, right? And I think you assess all those things. It's like, is this a skater that has separation speed? Is this a skilled player that has high-end puck skills? Can they shoot the puck? Are they a great passer? Do they have vision? Do they understand where to be at what time and they get there no matter what, regardless of those other things? And then are they elevating their game and competing? And so I think no matter where you're scouting, that's what you're kind of breaking down and figuring out. And what your team wants it might be different, right? But I think for the most part, if you look across all scouting, it's probably within that realm.
Interesting.
And when you're looking at skills that, could potentially be lacking or needs improvement or work upon, are there things that you kind of gauge and say, well, they're within this range, we can build speed? You look at somebody like Hyman, who, oftentimes was seen as not a very fast guy, and yet he's now able to, keep up with some of the speed, and he does work hard. Is there something you look for in a game?
He's grimy, right? He's first of all, I saw that hip piece out there by that guy.
Andrew Berkshire.
Come on, this guy's a clown. So I think we've all given him his 15 minutes. The reality is that Zach's an interesting case because he's a 1992, played for the Toronto Red Wings, and Stu is at that age group, of course. And Stu's an interesting character. Wasn't my favorite guy always. And I think I had a couple conflicts with him over ice. And I remember one guy going, Stu Hyman. I'm like, I don't give a crap who it is. He's not, but he's, one thing about him is he'll outwork you. He doesn't have a boundary of where he thinks his thing starts and yours ends.
Right.
And I think that's the way Zach is, right? So he's an unusual case. I think that's why you can't underemphasize skills, but also there's a grit, and he's just got like next level griminess, right? Like it's like he'll go to whatever area. He doesn't care if you shoot him. He's going to that area and he's going to outwork you and win those battles, right? So he might be a 5 on compete, even if he's only a 3 on skating, and it works. And the other example is Ryan, right? Like Ryan O'Reilly was never considered a good skater. When he was drafted, he was like, he's going to be a 3rd, 4th line centerman in the NHL someday. But I mean, I know firsthand what I learned from him was off the ice, he taught me everything. I've never seen a 15-year-old kid push boundaries to other boundaries physically. And his he was almost too hard on himself, I felt a lot of times. And I'd be like, tell him, I'm like saying to his dad, like, he's over the top. Because he's got to get mad at himself. And I was like, what? But for him, it was like, here's the level, and I want this other level and this other level. The guys loved him. And it wasn't because he was a great skater. And people underestimate how good of a puck handler he was. Because he was and I think Zach's very similar, where he'll get in, he knows where to go, he shows up, and he'll grime it out and beat you. But Ryan had very fast hands and very, very high hockey IQ. But when people said that, I was like, no, you don't know what you're talking about.
Did he have that bent stick like he did in the 2019 playoffs back then? Or was that
remember what his stick was like, to be honest with you.
Oh, okay, yeah, because that was something that people really noticed in the Stanley Cup final. And he ended up scoring one of the game-winning goals in one of the games in the Stanley Cup final with that curve, because it somehow
stick was
like it grabbed, essentially, like held the puck, and he was able to kind of control it without it kind of maneuvering. So it's definitely interesting. But yeah, it's really cool to see, because you look at these guys who come up, take a while to develop. It's
he didn't, by the way. Like, he made the NHL at 18, right? And they're still trying to break his combine records.
Yeah.
So what he did off the ice taught me, like, nobody has any excuses, because it doesn't matter how skilled you are, how great of a skater. He's worse than you in some ways, but you will not outwork him, and you will not. And if you see him now, he's a mountain of a person. Like I saw him at the beginning of the season, because he signed here in Nashville. And it was funny. I went to the rink, and who's the last guy on the damn ice?
Ryan
O'Reilly. He's a 33-year-old dude that's like still the last guy on the ice. By the way, they signed his brother in Milwaukee, but Cal's on the ice with them. And I turned, there's his mom. I'm like, Bonnie, what's going on?
Does he play center as well, or
Cal? Yeah, Cal was a superstar in Windsor. So that when they did the draft, they actually thought Ryan would go 2nd to Windsor and Taylor would go to Erie. And it was whatever they saw, which was weird, because I think he had 1 assist in the OHL Cup, but after the OHL Cup, Erie was like, yeah, we want him. And I think it might have been a Robbie Fatorik thing, because he loved Robbie. Like, Robbie was a good fit for him in some ways. But anyways, I just think it's like, there's guys like Zach, there's guys like Ryan, there's guys like Connor Dewar. Like, Connor was our captain. He's on the Leafs now, which I hope doesn't last. But if you look at what he did, I just remember saying, he is going to make the NHL because he thinks that he will stab you if he doesn't. Like, he'll just like will his way into the NHL, and that's the way Connor is. Because you look at Connor and you're like, what does he do? Like, everything. And that's like Ryan. Like, Ryan does everything. And Zach's kind of that guy. Like this makes no sense, but it works.
So we can keep going on and on. There's so much to discuss. I know we brought you on because there's the draft today, and you've been reporting a little bit about it. And there was things you were kind of reporting about it beforehand.
Draft lottery.
If you're comfortable sharing kind of what's been happening, what we talked about with the coaching and everything happening, if that's okay to share. If not, I'd love to get your thoughts on the draft and kind of what does that look like, who you're looking at, and Evan's got to follow up. Yeah,
and just before you go into that, Michael, if you can just explain to anyone listening right now, stopping in, whether they're commenting or whatever you guys are doing, make sure if you got questions to ask Michael, just let us know. If you can just explain to them about the draft. Not everyone's aware of the draft lottery into the WHL. And just a little bit about it, and then, of course, what's happening.
Yeah, so the draft lottery is like the NHL lottery in a sense, where you're picking the top picks, right? Go to the bottom teams, get so many lottery tickets, if you will, and then they have odds to be picked. So that it's not automatic, right? Try to prevent tanking like every other league. And
Yeah.
we have 3 drafts in the WHL. The CHL, by the way, does everybody know what the CHL and all that stuff is?
Yeah,
No,
we talk
no,
lots about it here. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we're in the Western Hockey League, and we have really 3 drafts, and we've always had like the bantam entry draft. So we draft this year 2009s. So it's 14-year-olds at the end of their 14-year year. In the OHL they do 15, and Q they do 15. So, but here we do it because there's this traditional thing with the BCHL, and college has always been bigger in the West. So we draft that. So today was the draft lottery for that. Now Everett is normally we're picking 19th this year because we finished, I think, 4th in the overall league standings, right?
Exactly.
But we had made a big trade last year. Olin Zellweger, who, Everett born and bred in a sense, like not born and bred, but we drafted him, and he played for us, played for Team Canada twice, and 3 times really with Helenka.
Amazing.
Developed, 2nd round pick to Anaheim, and he actually has played 17 games this year with Anaheim, AHL All-Star, right? So he's a very elite
amazing
player. By the way, his magic, I think, is the skating, but also off the ice and his hockey IQ. Like, he's a prototypical Everett Silverton. He's only 5'9".
Yeah.
He's like elite. So long story of that, we traded him because we it's the end of his career in the WHL last year. So last January, we made the assessment, or our GM and our assistant GM and probably some of the head, the scouts made the assessment like, hey, we're not gonna be able to compete with the top teams this year. We should let Olin and a few other veterans go and get assets back for them. And they made a whopper of a trade. So they traded Olin and Ryan Hofer for Kamloops, who were hosting the Memorial Cup. We got 4 players and 10 picks. And 2 of the players played on our roster this year. Cade Hamill and Rylan Pierce. And then we have 2 other players. But the 1 pick turned into today the 1st overall draft pick. I think we were slated, I want to say like 4th, and then we won, and so we move up. Or we were 2nd and we went to 1st. So we were going to pick no worse than 2nd overall, I think. Is how it was going to work. And so today that's the first time ever is the 1st overall pick, and the draft is May 9th. The US draft, there's a lottery, but I wasn't involved in that because it's the bottom teams, and I just you can't trade those picks either. So the US draft is 2 rounds. You can trade picks in the regular draft. So that's how we acquired it, but you can't do that in the US one.
Okay.
They just split up the US because the US is always a big wild card because of NCAA, right? So you're struggling on volume to grab. Even though there's 6 US teams in the Western Hockey League, guys. Like
I know, right?
Out of 22, great teams too, for the most part. The long and the short of it, that's the first time ever we've had 1st overall. It's the first time since 2003 we've had a top 5 pick.
Wow.
Yeah, pretty crazy. So, and we already have a ton of great players because we've made some other trades, and we've never had this many draft picks before. So our scouting staff is honestly I learned so much being around these guys. Their player assessment is second to none. They understand what it means to be an Everett Silvertip, not just skating, the skills to compete, and the character aspect. I think Dennis shared a story over the summer. He goes, he asked the captains, hey guys, who do we have to worry about in the room? Who do we have to keep an eye on? And the guys kind of huddled together and they go, honestly, coach, nobody. And they were right. So I think that's a big part of it. Everybody fits the culture really well, and we have a phenomenal group of young men. It's just, awesome. So that's been going on. But that being said, our coach is leaving.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Okay, so maybe give us an idea. What are maybe 3 guys right now that are very interesting that could possibly go 1st overall?
Oh well, I think people are kind of looking at this as the Landon DuPont.
The
draft.
DuPont year.
Yeah, he's a phenomenal skater, elite hockey sense. I'm trying to. I don't get to see him as much as the other guys, and I have to talk to them. But is he Bill Byram to Cale Makar, is that like his ceiling? He's probably in that realm, right? Like, but I've watched him on video, which I haven't had to see him in live, and I'm like, okay, the skating is like next level. It's very, very special. And his dad played a little bit in the NHL and played a lot overseas. I think he might have actually played in Germany. And I think the kid also played in Germany a little bit before all this.
Who was his dad?
Mickey DuPont.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, small defenseman. No, Calgary.
Oh, that DuPont. Okay. Was there a DuPont in Buffalo years ago?
Moose DuPont? Is that like, this one's this guy, like his dad just played up until like 2018, I think.
Wow. Okay.
In an era though when the small D-men weren't probably as effective or appreciated, right? Like, and I don't know if that would have changed anything, but the kid is like, that's a franchise type player. So that's one option.
Yeah, he's 5'11", 170 pounds right now.
Yeah. Played for Calgary and Pittsburgh and St. Louis. Not too many games, and mostly went over to the Berlin Polar Bears.
That's what it was.
And that's Swiss A.
Yeah. So Pavel and I sometimes aren't on the same page. I'm talking about his weight and height of Landon DuPont, and he's on because I was asking about his father there with it. So
that's right.
Sometimes you're on two different things. But wow, okay. All right, so then what about around the system right now? What does Everett got in the
we got a lot.
Yeah. What could people be looking for? Some guys that could be making the team this year?
Well, we've got a couple. I mean, I hope our American guys come because we got some really excellent American guys like Cam Dillard in Dallas. Booker Coronado is real good. And then we listed another player at the 15U Dallas team, which is Keaton Martin. They all got potential there. I mean, Cameron, I think, is probably right there, and Booker's not too far behind. Although there's gonna be a lot of competition.
Wow, that's good.
It's gonna be, so I'm keeping my fingers crossed on that. Let me take a look here. If we're we got Breck Liskey, and I think he's finished the season with us, so he'll get some playoff. He's a 2008 defenseman, real high level defenseman, like over point a game in the CSSHL. He's played 3 games with us. He had 2 points in 3 games.
Wow.
And he had a phenomenal camp. The other one is what's the other name? Kane. Oh my God, why am I blanking on his?
Oh, there's Evander's kid. He's already coming in.
No, not Kane. Not that Kane. God, no.
Oh, Anna's gonna be mad.
Why am I blanking on?
It's all good.
Wilkie.
Wilkie.
Yeah.
Okay.
Wilkie. Great camp, man. I really enjoyed having him on. The scouts jump on the bench and we coach, and then so you get to see them up front. I kind of like that.
Excellent.
Like you want to
That's fine.
be up top too, and it gives a chance for the coaches to be up top. But I kind of like being on the bench and in the room, and you learn a lot about the kids and how they interact, and you see them on the bench. They take direction and and then you get to also really understand their skating and their skills from that level. So he's really good. I mean, we've already got some awesome, like our 06 defenseman, Terrence Smith. He had a phenomenal year. So that's exciting that, he's where he's at. Our import 2006, Julius Miettinen, I think he'll be a 2nd or a 3rd round pick in the NHL draft this year. He's a big 6'3" Finn. Shout out to our European scout who's also terrific.
Wow.
Sandro Pavanine is like, he picked him out, and he's coming back, and that's great because it's his draft year too. So someone's going to get a real good prospect there. Our goalie Finn Werner is an awesome prospect, and
he's
I
looking
like
good.
Yeah, he's looking really. He had a great camp.
Yeah.
I don't think Corbin Sanderman got his first taste of a game. And I think there was maybe he didn't have as good a camp as the first one, and I don't know he's on the best team this year, but I still think he's got a lot of potential. Like, I'm no expert on goaltending, but I think he's still got something there. And then we've got, those are probably the guys that kind of stand out.
Yeah.
But there's a lot more.
That's good. I was, by the way, I was just looking. Landon DuPont, Team Brick. He was with Team Brick out of Alberta. He was at the Brick Invitational. He had 6 games, 5 goals, 5 assists as a D. Look at that,
terrific,
man.
Like,
Yeah,
there's
62
a lot of
points this
talent.
last season. 62 points, 30 games, 19 goals, playing for the Edge School U18 prep. Yeah, that's amazing.
And then Lucas Kaplan, finished the year with us, and he had a great camp. And you look at him, and I was like, he's not a big guy, super smart and skilled, goes to the scoring areas, and I think he's going to be a real good player for us next year.
Wow.
I'm excited about him. There's a lot of guys. It's just, you could keep going down the list. Our scouts do a phenomenal job there.
Incredible.
Are you influencing the decision of who would go first overall? Would you have any
input? I don't even see them. Like, how can I'm scouting Minnesota to California, so that would be crazy if they listened to me even.
I think you have to bring that gutso attitude you talked about earlier and be like, you know what, you're gonna have to pull me out of here because I'm telling you who to pick.
No, I think that's a terrible idea. We have, honestly, like, I learned so much from just being in that scouting group. Like, I love just talking to the guys because the way they see and pick out things, like, it's pretty impressive. I mean, we have some
shoulders.
Honestly, like, and even our prior GM and his friend Alvin, they're both in Calgary now. Alvin Backus, I learned so much from Alvin. Like, I love talking to Alvin. I probably drive him nuts sometimes, but like, they're from Salmon Arms. So I learned so much just around guys like that. Like, he scouted for Montreal for 7 years before coming to Everett, and now in Calgary. And
jeez,
he just has a very defined philosophy. He understands what it takes to be in a scouting room where they do fight over players.
Yeah.
I'm in a weird position. Like, nobody there is going to know any of my players, and I'm not going to know theirs. Like, it's just not going to happen, right? Like,
so they have to have a lot of trust in you. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, listen, my picks are, the biggest risk is, are they going to show up to camp? And if we can get past that, then I think it's pretty exciting because we got a phenomenal building. We got a phenomenal organization. We've always had excellent coaching. We got phenomenal training facilities. We're like top 2 in the WHL in attendance with 6,100 a game, and we're top 4 across the country. Like, the only teams that have more fans in the stands are Edmonton, London, and I think Kitchener.
Wow.
And then Quebec, there's a couple teams in Quebec that definitely do. But that's it. I think there's 2 in Quebec that might have the same or more fans a game.
Well, which is something very important to sorry, I'll let you finish, Evan, but it's just very important because that's kind of the whole thing. It's a business, right? Like, as much as you want to develop and get these kids, in games and on the ice, but you want to be able to get butts in seats. Go ahead, Evan.
Yeah. No, I was going to say, as much as I love geeking out, this is like an awesome night for me. If everyone that knows me, I mean, I'm sitting here going, I'm almost wetting myself here, but okay, not really, guys. I'm not really going to wet myself, but anyway, what I was going to say is a lot of our fans. So 80% of our content, 70 to 80, we try to keep around NHL because that's what pays the bills. Even though we're not monetized, that's not us, and we're in it for the love of the game. I'd like to just kind of move over, kind of get your take around lots of, hey, Akbal, because there's nothing to do with Everett. Okay, Akbal, just so you know, Akbal
actually I disagree with that.
Mayor in Vernon.
In Vernon.
Yeah, so
Does anybody give a crap about that?
Where's the Vernon Vipers?
So unfortunately, Boeing is the big employer in Everett. So the Boeing plant is there. And then what's really
I didn't know that.
Yeah, and we're like 40 minutes from Seattle, which is a total dumpster fire, frankly. But it's like, that's nothing to do with the hockey. It's just the city is wacky, right? But Everett downtown is pretty interesting. Like, there's all these like little cafes. There's like art galleries now, and there's all these little shops, and it's actually kind of surprising. And you know what else is downtown Everett is the Funko head office, and those little Funko stalls, right? Yeah. And it's like going into Disneyland. Like, they have an amazing store there in downtown Everett. It's pretty phenomenal. And we always, make little trips, and I'm a big Star Wars nerd, so I'm like, they have a crazy Star Wars setup. They always have Marvel. They have the hockey guys. They have basketball guys. They have all these movies. Like, I love Bruce Lee. I'm looking for Funko Bruce Lee. Right? So like, what's that? It's actually surprising. Downtown's actually kind of cool. Like it's a neat little place.
Wow.
There's also a prison. But
well, okay, so Akbal's kids are all grown up now. So Akbal, maybe you don't have interest, but a lot of other people do. So okay, so let's just quickly get your take. Let's talk a little NHL around.
Yeah, sure.
Give us what you think the two most interesting stories closing out the regular season going into the playoffs in your mind right now.
And the Nashville Predators.
Yeah.
Like, what the hell? So I just knew. I knew in my gut. First of all, why didn't he go back to Toronto? I was like, nah, ain't happening. I think that was one and done. That doesn't feel like a very Ryan place. Like, he's a great guy, but he's serious. And I think when I saw that Nashville committed 4 years to him, there was a little risk because he had the ankle injury last year.
Yeah.
And
That's right.
I'm like, you don't understand this guy off the ice. When you see him, and if you train with him, it'll blow your mind. So even though he's got a lot of miles on him, he's prepared to keep going.
Wow.
So I thought, well, they might surprise people. I don't love the rest of the lineup, but Trotz has got his finger on the pulse. I did not envision this. Like, this is crazy. Is it 18 games they have points in?
Yep.
And they beat
they came down 4-0 yesterday against Vegas. Yeah, down 4-0.
Do they stand a chance, though, guys? Do they stand a chance in that
Why
first round
they?
against? Okay.
Anything is possible. They're giving me LA 20.
Sorrows. They got Roman Yossi.
Yeah, Roman Yossi gets 3 to 4 points a night. Like the guy is
like.
I don't know.
Tommy Novak is an underrated player that people do not talk about enough. And I know he was on the trade block, and I think they re-signed him. What was it? He was like 865 or whatever the minimum wage, and they re-signed him.
Yeah.
Like,
Luke Evangelistas had a phenomenal rookie year. Like
Luke's done well.
Like he's done really well, and it's hard to Philip Forsberg is the best player out of that draft that he was overlooked.
He went head to toe with who was it?
Seider
recently. That was
with who? Who do you go?
Moritz Seider out in Detroit.
Yeah.
Not do that again, guys. Neither one of you.
He held his own.
Yeah, I don't know.
Okay, so we got the Nashville story. What other one?
Well, let's look.
So what did Akbal say there while he's looking, Pavel?
He's talking. I think the NHL 13 teams could win the cup, all depending on goaltending and power plays. I think it's true. This year is one of the more uncertain years of like who could win the cup.
Yeah, there's a lot. I don't think that Vegas might not even make the playoffs.
Yeah.
So I think that's crazy. You know what's crazy is Carolina. Like we keep overlooking them. They had a pretty interesting trade deadline.
Yeah.
Nets fabulous. Like a low key, move to pull in a really good player. What was the defenseman they pulled in? Oh my God, why am I blanking?
Defenseman? You mean? Well, I know they got Jake Gensel.
But they brought someone in on the back end. He's right. I can't.
Yeah, they brought another key in before that. Why am I blanking on it?
I'm trying to think.
Because
think
we're live.
Yeah.
You're blanking because we're live.
Maybe
if we pre-recorded the show, you'd remember.
I mean, even without that, they got Shea, Burns. Like that's a crazy back end. Shea, Burns, Slavin. I think Pesci's been hurt, right? He's played 63 games still, though.
Yeah, he's been in Walker. Walker went to
They got
Orlov.
Right?
That was last year. That was last year,
right? But if you look at these pieces they're building, and then Svechnikov is back. You got Teravainen, who's super underrated. Necas is like, man, some games he's the best player in that team. Oh wait, this guy named Seth Jarvis from the WHL.
He has been incredible,
right? So like,
Oilers wanted him.
I don't necessarily.
Toronto's kicking themselves for that one for the Marleau contract.
Jeez.
So it's pretty crazy. Like that is a crazy under the radar. If you look at the moves they made, I'm like,
well, and their goaltending was all over the place. Like a few other teams, like in New Jersey, right? Like they went through. I mean, Razik was
crazy.
Not Razik, sorry. Anderson was injured. Kachekov had to fill in. He struggled. They put Ranta on waivers. Nobody took him on, and he was, I believe, $2.5 million. And
yeah.
I thought Colorado had a chance.
I mean, you mentioned Walker, like, you know, the move to move Bo Byram, grab Casey Middlestad.
Yeah.
Walker's in that mix. They picked up Trennan from Nashville.
Oh,
yeah. He's been looking real. He's a veteran guy. Like,
he's good. He's good.
He's big and he can score a little bit. Like, you watch him, and I was actually a little surprised that they moved him, but they look really interesting. The goaltending could be curious there, but I think Colorado is a real shot. And then
it sounds like Francois may be out for like indefinitely.
Georgiev.
Georgiev is just overworked. He's a good goalie, but he's just overworked.
And it's interesting because Colorado and Carolina, so the two C's, you know, I could see potentially those both meeting. They have a really good legit shot, but goaltending for both of them, that's the question mark. If they have good goaltending, I mean, you could have a Carolina, Colorado. In fact, I've taken my take back now on Dallas just because Ottinger has not been consistent. Otherwise, that team, I would take them. Great. But I'm worried about Ottinger. He's got to blow a 900 save.
He's struggled a little bit in the last
weeks. And unless he picks that up in these
Scotty
last 7
Wedgwood, another 1992 GTHLer.
Wedgwood from Arizona. Yeah.
If you look at those 92s, like people overlook guys like Sam Carrick suddenly in the NHL with Edmonton, played on the Toronto Red Wings with Zach Hyman. Yeah, now he's in the Edmonton Oilers on the fourth line. You're like, oh, he's pretty good, right? Like, and then you look at Scott. I was always pulling. I never understood him. Like, come on, guys. Scott Wedgwood's the type of guy who can steal you game after game after game, and you won't even like. That's the way he always was. And I know he's probably not a number one, but he still has some sort of an it factor. And for him to make it at like 31 or whatever, it finally cracked through for him. Like, I was so happy. I just remember, like, he's just such a good goalie all the way up every level.
It's crazy.
Just an awesome kid at the time when he was young. Like, I loved. He was on our spring teams with Joe. So the Rockets, our Rockets spring, his Rockets spring team was great. I can't go ours. It was his. But we had players. It was nuts. If you go through that roster,
that's crazy.
But Scotty was one of our goalies.
So we're gonna have to talk a little bit more, Michael. Maybe what we'll do, we've hit to become two guys in overtime again here today. I know I got a couple things we just want to run off a rant and do a one around the rink here to do a wrap up. But maybe what we'll do is just before the draft, I'd love to touch base. We're planning to actually be at the draft live this year, especially being this is going to be the last year. Yeah, just
I got the it's in Vegas, isn't it?
Yeah, it's going to be in Vegas in the Sphere. So it's
he's flying down.
The rumor is this will be because they're talking about going virtual.
No, they're not doing that. They're moving it to the Sphere.
No, the Sphere is this year.
The Sphere is this year.
Oh, you think they'll do the Sphere and stay there every year?
Have you been to the Sphere?
No, I'm looking forward to it.
Crap,
so,
man. Listen,
is it good?
Oh my, we saw you two there.
So,
you did, but the Nashville Predators didn't.
So I take it you're not going, are you? Are you going to the draft? Or?
Yeah, I'll be at the draft. Yeah.
Oh well, then maybe we should try to hook up. We'll get you to come on.
I can sync up with you guys. No.
Yeah, no, that'll be wonderful. So, but yeah, no, so it should be kind of good. So yeah, definitely we'll stay in contact around it. We appreciate all the extra information, guys. Make sure you follow Michael Delano. Follow him. He loves podcasting, pucks and dreams. He wants to talk about pucks, and he just wants to dream about. Okay, I got to be careful what I say here because I can come across wrong, right? You know, he loves hockey. He breathes hockey. He almost gave up a date with his wife for hockey, but you know no, not quite. Otherwise, his wife wouldn't be with him.
I think there might have been an issue with our anniversary. I can't remember.
Yeah, a little bit or something along that line. So, but yeah, make sure you guys give him a follow over at Pucks and Dreams, guys. So thanks so much, Michael, man, for joining us tonight. It's been an awesome one. Keep your stick on the ice.
Cheers.
Oh, that's so awesome. Okay, well, why don't we do this? Why don't you give us your rant of the night, and I'll finish with Around the Rink before we give it a close.
All right, rant of the night. The rant of the night. Brought to you by our YouTube page. Go check them out.
We just self-advertise.
I love it. I'm just kidding. We got into it a little bit in the nitty-gritty, but it was just kind of about the Andrew Berkshire video him kind of going off about how it isn't just hard work for Mr. Zach Hyman. Now, I don't want to give this guy any more time on the air. I get it. About him, just it's not just about hard work. It's about the fact that he was financially and his family was financially well off. And so that is the rationale and reason why he is successful. It doesn't go over the fact that many guys have played with both Connor McDavid and Austin Matthews and never put up 50-plus goals, let alone double-digit goals. It's never been the fact that he's worked hard and people have taken a chance on him, and he worked his way through different leagues, as was talking about the Toronto Red Wings and such later on in the earlier years. And even Mike Babcock, for all his flaws, he's the one that gave him an opportunity to play. Started in the Marlies, then moved up in the fourth line in Toronto, and then moved his way up to play with Austin Matthews. Traded to Edmonton. Well, traded essentially, came over to Edmonton in the offseason, signed as a free agent. Loved it. And really, at the end of the day, it's really a bad take, because there's many people in the NHL that are well off and not well off. That is not why he put up 50 goals. And the fact that you're diminishing that, and let's talk about even somebody like Sam Reinhart. Sam Reinhart put up 50 goals. Does that mean Sam Reinhart, well, he's only played with the best of the best? He's playing with the Barkovs. He's playing with the Kachucks. That's why he's successful. No, not every person in the NHL, especially at Zach Hyman's age, 31, older in hockey years, is able to do such a feat. And the fact that he's been able to come in and play, and I know he doubled down with another video today. I think it's a bad take. I think that he really needs to go and rethink, because he makes all media look bad, and we are media, and I do not want to look bad. And unless he played a game in the NHL, which we know, Evan, is very hard, then I don't think anyone has anything to say about, well, it's 50 goals. It's nothing. He's got 200 career goals. How many people can say that? And he continues to produce at an excellent levels. And the Edmonton Oilers are very lucky to have him. And the NHL is very lucky to have a player like him. I don't want to get into the pseudo-psycho of like his background and even that and what that implies, because that, to me, that's just silly. I think it's a bad take. We all make mistakes. We get it. Admit defeat, accept, apologize, whatever you need to, and move on. But I think it was a bad take. And I think that he got his 15 minutes of fame. But I'm glad the hockey world came together to kind of say, this is a poo-poo idea. This is stupid. Okay?
Yeah.
Any thoughts?
No. Hey, that is your rant of the night, brought to you by Penny Billionaires, guys. Electronic hard rock fuse band. That is our intro and our exit music. Because we're two guys in overtime, we went a little bit longer with our guests. It was a great interview. It was awesome. But let me quickly give you something from around the rink to go out with tonight. So I wanted to be sure to bring you something here today, because it is March 27th. There's a lot of changes in the air. For one, we got spring coming on. So we've already sprung ahead in our time. The NHL is springing into the playoffs. The WHL is springing into the playoffs. The CHL. Playoffs are everywhere. You got March Madness. You got all this stuff going on. And I wanted to take us back today in history. And right behind you, Pawel, is the Boston Bruins. In March 27th has a connection to Ray Bourque. Ray Fabulous Bourque. One of the, probably, I think, now, I know a lot of people know that he's a Hall of Famer. He's got all this, but a lot of people don't talk about him like a lot of other players, but they should. But March 27th is a special day. So I got some interesting stats on him. So Ray Bourque in 1980, he set the NHL record for most points by a defenseman. He finished with 61 as a rookie. So that's 61 as a rookie, and he ended up with 65 at the end of the year. Now, that was with the Boston Bruins. But later in 1987, he picked up his 1,000th assist. So 17 years later, he picked up his 1,000th assist. He was the fifth player to ever hit 1,000, and he was the first player to do it on the team. That was March 27th. And in 1999, he got his, on March 27th, he got his 385th goal, tying Paul Coffey as the highest scoring defenseman in NHL history. March 27th was a special day for him. And so I actually had a couple other just quick little tidbits that, guys, March 27th, I'm going to put my glasses on for this one. So Guy Lafleur hit 50 goals for the second time against the Kansas City Scouts. The Kansas City Scouts, you got it, man. We're talking back. 1917, the Seattle Metropolitans of the PCHA, back then that's where the Stanley Cup would be handed out, were the first United States team. We had a U.S. head scout on for the Everett Silvertips here, Michael Devellano. So the Seattle Metropolitans, not far away from him, won the first Stanley Cup for a U.S.-based team in 1917. And this is the most exciting one. In 1982, a 10-game suspension was handed out to Vancouver Canucks Harry Neal because Tiger Williams took Peter Stastny and started laying a beating to him on the ice. A fan started to grab at Tiger Williams, and Harry Neal ran down off of his bench and grabbed the guy and swung at him, and the melee took off in the crowd of people. March 27th holds a special, special day in the eyes of a lot of hockey fans. And that is all I have to say for today on Two Guys and Hockey Talks Overtime.
Well, thank you. That was very insightful. We love our NHL and hockey history. We thank you to Michael for being on the show. Remember,
Absolutely.
you can follow him at Pucks and Dreams. He's a hockey scout. He's a podcast person. As you can tell, he's very involved. He knows his coaching. He knows his skills. He knows his development. Go give him a follow. We appreciate you guys tuning in. Remember to like, share, subscribe. We are here every Wednesday night at 7 p.m. Mountain Standard Time, or as Lost Trucker, shout out to Lost Trucker, Mountain Daylight Savings Time today. Thank you all for tuning in. It's been fun hearing from all of you. We are back here again next Wednesday. We've got more content. Playoffs are coming up. A lot of things happening around the world of hockey. Give our website a follow at twoguysinhockeytalk.com. We love it. And as Evan likes to say, keep your sticks on the ice. Evan, let's ring it up.
In the meantime, it's been a ring-a-ding-dong dandy. Have a great week, guys.
Keep your sticks on the ice. Stay safe, guys.
Cheers. Could that just put him over the edge?
I'm not too sure. I don't think they did well.
He's a bully.
I'm just so sick and tired. I'm hanging on a wire, a foot over the fire, and it's burning. I can feel it inside. Done with the same cliche. Done with the day after day. There's got to be a way. Now is the time to break the tie. I'll live, I'll die for what is wrong and what is right. I'll take the pain for all the ones without a name. To be invincible, we'll be invincible.
They still have a lot of holes to fill.
He didn't get fired. He didn't get fired. No, he didn't get fired. He never got his contract.